could we be given warning at the beginning of a programme if there's going to be anything about the Beatles, as all Beatle fans can make sure to listen, and have a chance to ring up other fans to make sure they are also listening.
Hi everybody, this is John here. This is Paul, George
and Ringo.
And we're very happy to be on your program once again.
Hi everybody, this is Steve Marinucci welcoming you to another Beatles News Briefs podcast. On this show we talk to Rob Frith, who you may recall we talked to in show number 91. He's the owner of Neptune Records in Vancouver, and he had found a tape of the Beatles' Decca auditions on an old reel. Those tapes, of course, had been bootlegged many times, but he and some friends analyzed the tape and found to be much better quality than the versions we'd heard before. They described it as sounding like the Beatles were in the room with them. In that show, he said he'd gladly hand the tape to Paul McCartney for free if he could do so personally. It seemed like wishful thinking at the time, but that's exactly what happened recently. And here's Rob talking about handing the tape to Paul McCartney.
Let's get started. How have you been?
Good. Yeah, it's been a very eventful couple of weeks.
Yeah, I bet. I'm here with Rob Frith, and we've talked before. We talked in March when you guys first got the tape. And
well, it was when I first discovered the tape. I'd had it for 10 years.
That's right. That's right. And we went through the whole history. Doug was the one that said right then and there that he thought it was a copy of the master. I listened to that this afternoon. And I didn't want to draw any conclusions because, like I told you, I'm not an engineer. I did ask a couple of people, and they were skeptical. And I reported the part about the leader tape between the song, because you mentioned that in the interview, or Doug mentioned it in the interview that we did. That always kind of interested me as to something is different about this. But I didn't want to come out and say what it was or what it might have been.
Yeah, well, the thing is, we weren't even sure at the beginning. You know, I thought it was a bootleg tape or a bootleg or a tape with a bunch of bootleg records on it. That's why I never listened to it. I just assumed that it didn't make sense for it to end up in Vancouver in my store, like thing. And then when we listened to it by chance, because I was doing another project, I was transferring tapes. I brought it along because I found it a couple of days before. Thought, oh, I should just see what's on it. And then to like put it on, and then it's not off records, it's off a tape. And we think, well, that's bizarre. Like, it's not, this is like an incredible sounding tape. Sounds like the Beatles are in the room with us. And that kind of like sort of, we're like looking at each other like, what the hell is this? And so it was like that's our first exposure to it. And it was like sort of overwhelming in that when I'm not expecting what that was. And then at that point, I just posted something like a video clip of the sound and the song the following day on my Instagram without even tagging anyone. And it just blew up from there. So then I got a newspaper guy that follows me on Instagram, the local newspaper, phoned me up and then writes a story on it. But in the meantime, just before he phoned me, we found out that it came from England. This guy went to Decca Records and do someone there, got the tape and brought it back. Even then I thought it must be just a copy. Like, why would they give the original, right? So then with all that happening, then I give this interview with the newspaper and that blows up where I'm doing all these interviews. But the thing was, we hadn't even listened to the whole tape yet. We'd only listened to the first 4 songs and a couple of video clips. So we were learning along the way, trying to figure this out. We already knew about the leader tape between songs, but then we discovered the edit on this one particular song. And we heard it. We listened online and said, did they all have this? Or is our tape screwed up and someone fixed it? So we listened, they've all got the edits. But ours has the editing tape where they've actually edited the tape. And, and we thought, well, that's something. So we just kept finding these things that just kept making it look like it's the original. And then we had these guys from the States. They're big time engineers. They just did all the Springsteen albums and Doors out. Asked for a little sample. They could tell where the tape was from and the time period. They go by I guess because the power is different in England or something. But anyway, they were able to figure out that it was from like the early 60s and from England. They knew what kind of a machine. I don't know. It was just like mind-boggling that someone could even do that. But, you know, they were totally up and up guys, and they let us know about that. And so then these other people that had heard some of the clips, they said, this is the best sounding tape of that session that we've ever heard. They'd heard everything. So it just kept going further and further towards it being like every time we'd find something out, it was another step forward to being the original. And so up till that's what's happened. So all of a sudden it seems like it's got to be the original. And the story
let me just mention one thing. I forgot to say this in the beginning, that you own Neptune Records in Vancouver.
Yeah.
And that is where the tape was. That's where
I bought a record collection. That tape was in with the collection, but I bought it 10 years ago. So it just sat on a shelf. It just sat on a shelf because I thought it was a bootleg.
Okay.
I never listened to it because I didn't have a machine to listen to it. And it was because I was doing a project. I produced a series called The History of Vancouver Rock on LP. And I'm writing a book. So I interviewed a bunch of people and they had tapes. I'd booked the studio to transfer those. I just happened to run into the tape a couple of days before and brought it along as just like a, you know, and even at that night, I was tired and had dinner. And I said, I'm not going to listen to it this time. And then one of the guys said, it was either Larry or Doug, said, oh, let's just listen to the first song, just see what it is. And then
was that the night I talked to you? Or
no, that night, I think maybe we transferred the rest of it. I can't remember exactly, but it was like just so on the back burner of things to do. I really, you know, when you think something's like a nothing thing, and then you discover that, well, this is off a tape, this isn't off a record, and the quality is so clean that, like I said before, we're in a studio with a great sound, and it sounds like the group is in the studio with you. That's how clear it was. So like it's just like our heads are spinning. We don't know. We never expected that. So it was just kind of mind-boggling. And so then Paul's lawyer phoned me, and then everything changed.
Everything changed. Can you mention any of the names of the engineers that came up and listened to it?
They didn't come up. I sent them a clip.
You sent them a clip.
Unfortunately, I can't remember them off the top of my head. I have the information.
Okay.
I can send it to you, but I just can't remember off the top of my head.
Okay.
But they're out of Philadelphia.
Oh, okay.
It's the guys out of Philadelphia. And he contacted me. Like, we didn't contact him.
Okay.
And
so Paul's lawyer contacted you.
Yeah. And after the New York Times article came out, after the New York Times interviewed me, that came out in, I think, the beginning of April. And then soon after that, I get a call at my store, like in one morning, and this guy phones up and says, hey, I'm Paul McCartney's lawyer. And, we read the article in the New York Times, and he said, we both loved it. We loved the fact that you weren't trying to monetize it in any way, and that you're just willing to just give it to Paul. And they really liked that. And I could tell that he'd probably checked me out because he knew all about my store and everything else. He's probably checking to see if I'm some nutcase, or a stalker or something like that. So he was very, very forthcoming with that sort of stuff. And anyways, he just said, what do you want? I said, all I want to do is to give this to Paul in person. What I'd like is if he came to Vancouver and I give it to him here. He said, that's not going to happen. But if you want to come to New York, Paul's in New York right now. And I said, I have a fear of flying. To fly to New York is way, way past what I could do. So then he says, we're probably going to be in California in September. So I said, that's doable. I could, and at that point I thought maybe I'll take a cruise ship down or drive down. But then they eventually, when they did contact me, I had 4 days notice to be there. I think they phoned me on the 14th. I had to be there on the 18th.
Oh boy.
And at that point, they just wanted me to come. And I just said, I want my family to come, my 2 sons and my wife. He said, well, I'll have to check on that. And actually, this wasn't his lawyer now. Now I was talking to a fellow named Keith Smith, maybe? Keith, he works with Paul, might be his road manager. I'm not 100% sure. They told me, but I don't remember. But anyways, super nice guy. anyways, he's the one that contacted me, and then he said, well, we'll have to check on the family thing. And then they got back to me and said, yeah, that's fine, but nobody else, because I wanted my kids' girlfriends to come, and they said, oh, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So then we flew down on the Wednesday, on the 14th or 17th, sorry.
Oh, you did fly down.
I did fly. Well, it's
Okay.
only like, it's less than 3 hours, where, New York's, what, 5.5 or no,
Okay.
longer, I'm not sure. And I don't even like the 3 hours, but hey, I'm going to potentially meet Paul McCartney. I figured I have to do it. So even though I was uncomfortable with it. So we fly down on the Wednesday. I messaged his people on that night saying that I've made it down. And I said, where do I go and what time? And they said, we'll give you a time. We can't give you the address yet. I guess they didn't want that out there for any late time.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't blame them. Yeah, they don't know. They've never met me before. And so the next day they gave me the address, and we were staying in Hollywood, and I think it was like a $75 Uber ride or something. So it was a little ways away, but it was in a giant, like a movie TV show studio. Like it's a whole bunch of them. It was out of town.
Right.
Really nice spot. They were really nice, like newer type buildings, but it was in a kind of a rural area because there was like an empty field across the street. Anyways, that was his rehearsal space. And that's where they're rehearsing for the tour. And so we Ubered out there. Were met by the security people and this fellow Keith that works with Paul, and very nice guy. And they escort us into the building, and it's giant. Like, it's like the full stage for his tour, set up with all the lighting and the big screens and all this equipment. And I guess all the equipment for the tour stored there as well on top of it. And all these people getting stuff, for their rehearsals. Right. And we basically were sitting there talking to a few of the people, and they're all very polite. And every single person I met there was really nice. So then, so we're talking. They're saying that's really cool about the tape. And then all of a sudden, Paul just wanders over, and he calls me by name, and he gives me a big hug and says, just wanted you to know that what you're doing, nobody does that anymore. And he says, I'm really thankful for what you're doing. And he meant like to just give him this thing for free and not try to make any money on it. And it's just, it was flattering that he said that, but I wasn't thinking in those terms. I thought I was doing the right thing. Anyway, so he was very
you told me that when we talked, that you would do it for free.
Yeah, I know. Right from the start, I was never trying to do anything else other than that. But anyway, so then he was like super friendly. I introduced him to my family, and then he said there was a couch there in the middle of this room, just on its own, like the only furniture there. And he says, let's sit down and chat. So we sat down on the couch. He puts his arm around me, and we're holding on to the tape. And then I realized that they're filming the whole thing. They're filming us getting there, but I didn't notice it. Like, I guess I was so in awe of Paul. I was just looking at him and didn't realize what was going on. And then, they also, we weren't allowed to take photos, but they had a professional photographer there who I was introduced to after the fact, and a super nice guy. And they said that they would send me photos, but they had to do them. And then we just sat there for 40 minutes talking on this couch. And again, just like talking to an old friend, except it wasn't an old friend. It was somebody I've known for a long time, from media, but no one I knew. But anyways, but he was that friendly and that chill and nice that it was like that. And so we were kind of just about done with that. And I was told that he doesn't like to sign stuff, but we brought like a half a dozen things for the family. And two of them I really wanted to get signed were pictures that I just acquired this last year of the Beatles when they played in Vancouver in 1964. And they were crystal clear, obviously original photos. And I said, I know you don't like to sign, Paul, but is there any? And I hadn't even finished saying. He says, of course I'll sign. And he signed the stuff for us, and he personalized it, which we were quite happy with. But not that I would never sell them, But anyways, so he did that, and then we basically got up and we're saying goodbye. And just before that, his tour manager brings this box set of Wings like the new Wings box set that's coming
New
out.
Wings box?
Yeah. And he brought it
gave you
over and said, this was just sent to us here today. And I'm looking at the thing the same time Paul's looking at it. Like the two of us are like, look at the, he's pulled the booklet out, and it was just really kind of cool that Paul and I saw that at the same time. So that was kind of cool. And then we got up, and then Paul says, and asked these people that were working there for him, saying, hey, can you give them a tour of the whole rehearsal space and where all the instruments are? And we did. We got a tour of the whole place. There's seemed like 100 guitars between bass and guitars, just tons of instruments. Absolutely amazing. So
did you meet the band?
I'm coming to that part. So that day, no, I did not meet the band that day. So then we were getting ready to leave. Paul came over again, gave us all a hug, and knew all my family by names at this point. And he said, so you're going back to Vancouver now? And I said, actually, no, we're staying till Sunday. He says, oh, what are you doing tomorrow? And I said, oh, no plans. Why? It says, do you want to come to our rehearsal tomorrow? And I said, yeah, that's amazing. So he said, okay. And he asked the tour guy, he says, what time do you think? He said, 2:30 would be a good time. I said, that works for us. So then we're just about to leave. And Paul says, actually, what are you doing for lunch tomorrow? And I said, no plans. And he says, do you want to join us for lunch tomorrow? And
wow.
They become at 1 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, yeah, that's amazing. So we did. We went the next day. And when we got there, I think they changed the order of things, because we got there, they were already on the stage, the whole band playing. And they brought us in and sat us at that same couch. So we basically had an hour and a half private show with Paul McCartney and his band. And so what happened after that? Then that was finished. And then it was time for lunch. And then Paul came over and took me over to where the caterer that does all vegetarian food was all set up, and introduces me to her. And, just raving about her foods that she's been working for me for years. And I remember Paul reaching over and grabbing a French fry and eating it right away. And I thought that was so cool and chill and so normal for anybody to do.
Was it all vegetarian?
It was, yeah, the whole thing. Yeah. And the thing was too, is the day before when they asked us to come for lunch, they asked, is there anything, it says it's vegetarian. Okay. I said, yes, but my youngest son has an allergy to peanuts. And so they made a special meal for him.
Oh my.
The next day. Yeah. Which was very, very nice of them to do. And then we kind of hung out. Then I got to hang out with the band and meet the whole band. And they were all super nice. And a friend of mine, Nardwar, I don't know if you know who Nardwar is, but he's a famous interview guy. He's got millions and millions and millions of views. He does a lot of interviews in the basement of my store, which I'm actually filming for right now. And he knows the guitar player, the blonde fella.
Brian Ray.
Yeah, he knows Brian.
Yeah. I've interviewed Brian. He's the cool guy.
Yeah, so Nardwar told me to say hi to Brian for me when you're there. And so I went over and said, hey, Brian, but Nardwar says hi. And oh my God, Nardwar. And he was all excited. And then Brian just, hey, sit down and let's chat for a bit. So he wanted to know the whole story of the Beatle tape. And then I got up from him, and then I was walking back to my table. And then the other guitar player grabbed me and said, hey, you got to tell me about this. Yeah. And
Rusty's also cool.
And then we talked to the drummer, who was super nice. What a nice guy he is. And man, he's really, I guess it's the vegetarian food. He's really buff and not as big as he used to look like. He was really good shape. Yeah. I was impressed. And I talked to Paul's personal bodyguard and just and every single person that works with Paul is so nice. You kind of want to be friends for life with them. It was just a really great, sweet experience. And then we were done, and then Paul comes over again, and as we're leaving, and just gives us all a hug, and just was so very emotional about receiving the tape, and it was just great. It could not have gone better. I couldn't imagine it being any better than it went.
Did he say what he thought the tape was? Did he give you his opinion?
Yeah,
what it was?
Yeah, he says it looks like the original tape to him, and he was pretty.
Okay.
Hey, I think they investigated it well. That's why. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been there.
Right. That's amazing.
I told him he should put it out for Record Store Day.
That's a great idea. Do you think he will?
Hey, they could do a different color every year to sell it forever.
That's right.
But
And people have been asking.
He thought it was a good idea. But his people, I'm sure, will decide.
Yeah, and when you're talking about Beatle tape, there's a whole lot of. It's not just his. It's not just him that has to approve it. It's
That's right.
Beatle conglomerate.
And I'm not sure whether Decca would have some say. They might. I don't know how that works.
I don't think so at this point, because they rejected.
Yeah, because they rejected it, but it was their tape, so I don't know how that works, but it'd be interesting.
I mean, it's been out before on discs, and Pete Best did. I remember one release on vinyl that Pete Best was involved with, because
there's nothing officially released except for on the anthology series the Beatles put out. Is it like 3 or 4 songs?
Right,
On
there was a vinyl release that was in regular stores that I think it was pretty close to a regular release. It wasn't a bootleg. I mean, there's been tons of bootlegs.
Well, it wasn't authorized by the Beatles, I don't think. So it was a bootleg then.
Yeah, I suppose you're right.
Yeah,
but I think Pete was involved with that one. It was a white vinyl, I believe.
Yeah, it's been around for years, bootlegs and various things, but never from the original tape.
Right.
Yeah. So that's the thing. Then the weirdest thing happened. We left there. Paul's people drove us back to our hotel. And then my family, we went for dinner on our own to this really nice restaurant in Hollywood. And we're sitting there halfway through dinner. This is going to sound unbelievable. It seems weird to me. It's almost like we were being punked by some network that somehow knew this, and we were being filmed or something, because it was so outrageous. We're sitting there halfway through dinner. These 4 people are at the table in front of me, behind my wife and my son, Robert, but my son, Ben, is beside me. And I see the people sitting there, and I nudged my son. I said, that looks like Julian Lennon sitting down. And he says, no, it's not. And then he looks at his phone, that's Julian Lennon. And Julian Lennon was sitting at the next table, and I wanted to go say something, because I was just with Paul McCartney for the afternoon, and all of a sudden I run into Julian Lennon. It's got to be because it's LA, right? Like, there's so many famous people there. But it was so unbelievable. And my family said, don't bother him. So I didn't go there and say anything. I regret it now. But my son pretended he was taking a family photo, as he got a photo of him in the background. So it was him. In fact, I just did a podcast with someone from Australia the other day, and I think he either knows Julian or has access to him, and sent him the little clip that he recorded of me telling that story. And Julian said, next time he sees me, tell him to say hi.
Oh,
I thought that was very sweet.
cool.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's basically it. Paul's got the tape. I don't, but I have the memory of meeting him, which is a huge thing for me.
I assume you have a copy somewhere for yourself.
Oh yeah, I have a digital copy of it. But what we found out through the engineers in Philadelphia is that the tape machine we transferred it on isn't the 100% the best way. Like, you have to find a mono tape recorder that it'll be even better sound than what we got. Even though ours is unreal, you have to find the right tape recorder to do the exact. I told Paul that you have to get the right one to get the maximum sound. I'm sure people know how to do that. But
I'm sure they.
But it was something that I didn't know, and because ours was a stereo one, was just a 2-track, but apparently you need a mono one to make the actual best sound, so it'll be even better.
Besides doing podcast interviews like this one, has there been any, have you been, people tapping you on the shoulder on the street or anything like that?
Yes. Yeah. At my store, a lot of people come to my store and I get a lot of emails. I had some really sweet emails of people that were very pleased with the way it was handled, and that goes a long way for me. And yeah, it's been great. Just so you know too, we've never approached anybody for any of the interviews I've done. Every single person that have done interviews with us have approached us. I've never once tried to get an interview or do anything. It was all because of the Vancouver Sun newspaper starting it.
Right.
The New York Times is what tied us in with Paul. But it was just like, I did interviews all over the world, I've always wanted it to be a feel-good story, and I think it's worked that way, and that's the way I wanted it to be. So, and Paul thought so as well. I asked Paul how he found out, and he said he read it in the New York Times.
When you said that to me in March, I was like, that's cool. But the chances of it happening are, incredible. And the fact
It's impossible. It's impossible what happened, but it did happen.
And the fact that it happened was wonderful. And I think everybody feels so good for you. They're also hopeful that Paul will release it. And I hope he does too. I mean,
yeah, well, I couldn't have released it. I mean, it would just sat in the basement or something, but
right.
I felt it went to the right place for the possibility of release it. The fact that they released a few songs on the anthology makes me think that now that they have the original tape, like, I don't know, there was that fellow in Japan that bought a tape with 10 songs on it. And this has got 15. So I don't know whether they got it from him, but that had to have been a copy. There was no leader tape or anything like that, but.
And they are going to release the new anthology in a few weeks.
Yeah.
But it's not going to it's probably too late in the process.
Oh yeah, it's a done deal. Yeah.
To use
But I think they could put the record out on its own at this point, and it would do well. And I know, they definitely. I can't see them not putting it out unless it's some legal thing that they can't. No, they can't be. They've already put some out, so I'm sure that they will put it out. I don't see why they wouldn't.
I hope they do. I mean, they'll be able to really look at it now and put it under a microscope and get the real high-tech stuff to look at it and to deal with it. Hopefully they will. I mean,
yeah,
they've already done. I mean, there are tracks from the new anthology out there on YouTube. Have you heard any of them yourself?
No, I haven't.
Oh, okay.
No, I never did.
Just like Frith is on YouTube, the new version. But anyway, thank you for taking the time. Thank you for doing this.
Well, I am in the store. I'm in the store right now in the basement. I am working. I work every day. So.
Oh, okay.
Hey, it's a fun job.
Is that all your Beatle collection behind you, or is it?
No, this is just overstock for my store. It's like
is it?
Yeah, it's like this whole room is like filled with stuff. Like,
oh my god!
And there's another room in another doorway here. There's a whole other thing, and I own the building, and there's got upstairs filled with stuff as well. So yeah.
Oh my gosh! If I ever get to Vancouver, I will come in and see you.
Yeah, we got a lot of stuff, cool stuff.
It sounds like the place to go. So anyway, Rob, thank you. And I'm going to click off the record button here. I do know how to do that. Oh, there it is.
Thanks very much for listening to our podcast today. If you enjoyed our program, we'd really appreciate a positive review at the place where you get your podcasts. Apple and Google love positive reviews, and it really helps us. If you don't already, please subscribe to our show so you'll get our newest shows right away. And if you have any suggestions for the show, please write to us at BeatlesExaminer@gmail.com or catch us online on Facebook, Twitter, and Blue Sky. And please tell your friends about us. We appreciate you all for listening. Now here again is Steve Marinucci.
Well, thanks for listening. That's all for today. Until next time, this is Steve Marinucci saying,
"Be seeing you." keep that one. Mark it fab.